So, hello, and welcome to another episode from Dubai of EHP International. And what do we call it, Raj? What's
Enhancing Human Potential.
EHP International. So today we have a really good friend of mine, but an amazing woman. Her name is Natalie Callaghan, and she has a lot to tell us. And Raj, I'm going to let her tell us about herself because the list is long and I don't want to mess it up.
I agree.
Welcome, my dear friend.
Hi.
Thank you for having us,
Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a pleasure. So obviously, Natalie Callaghan. I'm originally obviously from the UK and I've been over here in Dubai now for 12 years. So let's go back to my education days. I studied fashion business back in Nottingham-Trent. And part of obviously that course was it allowed me to obviously move over to New York for a year. And ever since that point, I was like, I call it like itchy feet in a sense. I came back to the UK and it just wasn't fulfilling me. So I was sensed I needed to obviously get out. And I remember when I graduated, it was around the economic crisis. So there wasn't a lot of opportunities, if I was to be totally honest, for a new graduate, especially in the fashion industry. If anyone has obviously graduated from it, a lot of them will tell you, oh, you can do this, but you work for free. And I was like, well, you know, I like to eat. So I definitely won't be moving to London.
Love doesn't pay the rent.
Exactly, right? So, and, you know, unfortunately, Dad, he's not Paul McCartney. So I had to obviously think of different things. So obviously, I remember having a conversation with my sister and my best friend, and we're in the living room and we were joking around. And my sister actually went for an interview with Virgin Airlines. And we all kind of sat there and were like, why don't we all just do it? And while they were joking, I was on my laptop applying. And lo and behold, I obviously got pulled through and, you know, made it obviously to the next stage. And I always say Emirates Airline for me was the biggest university. It was the biggest learning curve for obviously what I've done in terms of my career. It allowed me to visit 65 countries.
Wow.
It allowed me to meet so many incredible people. You know, when I first entered sales, that's obviously then how I kind of like evolved. But, you know, remove on time because I know obviously we're going to touch on different aspects. I then did obviously fly in for around 6.5 years, and then I shifted obviously into the real estate industry around COVID time. So I entered when it was particularly very hard.
Reinvent yourself.
Yeah, I really did. I mean, like I say, confidence grew definitely with the airline industry, but kind of really learning the business side was obviously through real estate. So I stepped in, I did sales for a period, and then I shifted more into like operational roles, which led me then into training myself. So again, that's where we've had a huge connection.
That's when I met you.
Yeah. And I basically have kind of flourished on the aspect of growth mindset. You know, I'm a big believer of collaboration, relationships. I think, you know, trust and respect is probably the key in any relationship. Totally. And whenever I've trained, that's a big focus that I used to have. And then moving on, obviously the biggest thing I used to do when, again, back in my flying days, was I was constantly networking up there. Most cabin crew, and again, you can ask them, they don't like the lounge. Again, times might have changed, but it meant standing up for 10 plus hours talking to people. Wow. Ask anyone, I can talk for England and maybe more. So I would stand there and obviously interact with these people, and, you know, my key questions kind of, you know, as an icebreaker would be, go on, how did you make your millions? And that's how, again, we'd like build these kind of connections. And a lot of those connections then became my clients when I first started in sales. Right. And, you know, like I say, through that and obviously building those relationships over time and long-standing relationships, I've now shifted into a role where I focus on B2B. So I'm a full-time networker.
Wow.
And a full-time relationship builder with obviously different businesses and individuals that align with obviously Anarok, who I work with, Anarok Middle East. And essentially we allow those people to benefit through our industry. And that's me in a nutshell. So, wow. But there's obviously a lot more depth to it. But like I say, there's been a huge kind of learning curve, especially over the last 12 years. And like I said, my career is quite hybrid in a sense, but I've, you know, had some incredible opportunities through living here in Dubai, basically. So, yeah.
You feel that's your passion now?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my passion is people. I think, it doesn't matter what you do. It's all about kind of what you offer as, obviously, as an individual. And like I say, I think that building relationship aspect, I don't know whether it's, say on my background, Irish hospitality is always kind of like very warm. And I think I do kind of push that obviously into the relationships that I hold professionally. And I think that's probably a key aspect. It adds a bit of sparkle and, builds that rapport. So yeah, that is basically me in a nutshell.
Amazing.
Interesting.
P factor.
Yeah, I'm actually curious for a place like Dubai or UAE in general. If you were an entrepreneur, you're bringing your business in, or people like us, I mean, we're not exactly entrepreneurs as in we're starting the business. We've been in it for 30 odd years.
Yeah.
But we're now trying to build or put our foot in to this market.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to people like that? What's the best way to go about it?
If I could just correct, not we're trying, our foot is in the market because we do have clients. I don't want
We
anyone
do.
to think that we're not
Yeah,
here.
we do.
We've been here for quite a while, and that's how you met me.
But with her nutshell that she mentioned, she made it sound like it was a small thing. It's
It's
a
not a
huge
big thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think network is huge. I think the big aspect with Dubai is it's got a very international focus. So, again, and this isn't just from a flight attendant aspect. This is anybody can come over here and they can have friends from all corners of the
Amazing.
world. So I think utilising a network is probably the key aspect with Dubai. I always say compared to other cities, so say maybe like London, New York, like the larger cities, you do have to kind of go through the hierarchy of corporate businesses, let's say. Whereas I feel with Dubai, it's a little bit more, again, people are very open to kind of
Very
connection.
social here.
It's very social. And I think that's a key aspect. You've got to kind of really network. And you don't know who that next conversation will kind of bring you into some business. And I think the one thing I find when I am speaking to obviously partners and connections I've made over the years, I'll be speaking to them, and as I'm speaking to them, I'm like, I need to connect you with that person.
Yeah.
And people are very willing to do that over here. And I think that's a really nice aspect to Dubai. But I think from an entrepreneurial aspect, it's like, again, take every opportunity. Definitely between now and March is when Dubai gets very exciting. There's a lot of events. It's very busy. People are flying in. Obviously, we've just gone through the summer period, which is the low season.
Yeah.
But yet Fashion Week is now, right?
Yeah.
So
there's just so many, always opportunities. And like I said, we've just had today, obviously I mentioned I did a podcast earlier, and, they're a UK company that, again, are shifting business into here. And ultimately, the biggest thing that we were talking about was collaboration, relationship, and, maintaining the fact that we're stronger together, not as an individual. And I think then just being true to yourself, that authenticity is very important here in Dubai. I think people, because it is quite transitional, it's the ones who are really true to themselves and, have the strong standards and everything else that actually kind of last. Because, again, Dubai is relatively actually a small place, especially if you go by industry. I mean, obviously, training industry, I'm sure we've got very mutual people that we could discuss. And I think that's very key, that you stand by your authenticity, your unique selling points, and then, like I say, blend in with your collaboration.
A lot of our clients that we are dealing with here seem to mention about Dubai and the service aspect. They feel because Sheikh
Mohammed?
Sheikh Mohammed is trying to achieve a certain level.
Yeah.
Are the businesses in this part of the world actually meeting those expectations? Because we've been told that there's gaps in service expectations, and there's a lot of stuff that could be done in terms of, training for service.
I mean, okay, so obviously the first role I had here in Dubai, the training I went through with that was, I think I was training from October to let's say around December. And it was very, very hardcore, very strict. If you had a nail out of place or, your makeup wasn't in place, they would tell you about it. So those standards were, from a visual aspect, but that's important because, when you're delivering a high level, I'm expecting a high level individual to serve in that sense. I feel there is definitely gaps, but again, that's opportunities for a lot of businesses to develop. If I go back to, say, my current industry, obviously with real estate, there is even gaps with service there. There's a lot of agencies over here that hire very, very fast and on large quantities. And I sometimes don't think those individuals are actually set up to understand that, yes, you can be earning 200, 300, multiple numbers in terms of obviously commissions, but you're still a service provider.
You are, yeah.
And I think every industry, unless you are literally in a cave and you only literally speak to an AI robot and again, name the industry, we all have to interact with people. And it doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a flight attendant, a fireman, or, anything in those lines, you have to have that interaction with people. So like I say, the people aspect is the strength. I think with Dubai, like I say, I think there is an element where, like I say, it's very transitional. Tourism is a huge aspect of Dubai. So people are always going to be coming in and out. And then obviously the one benefit of tourism, I guess, they can eat this week, but it doesn't mean they're back next week.
True.
Right. But now the other difference is a lot of people are staying in Dubai. I've been here 12 years. I was planned 1 year. But I say 12 years later, I've stopped that conversation.
Everybody says that.
Yeah, they do. And I don't know why we say it, actually, because we have it so good here. The lifestyle I've achieved by living in Dubai is, I don't think I ever would have achieved that if I stayed in the UK. So I don't know why we all do say 1 year. But like I say, I think a lot of people now are staying long term.
Right.
One of the statistics we touched on today was the average family size in Dubai is, I think, 5.3. So that, again, whereas it used to be historically young professionals coming in and staying for a contract, people are now staying and moving their whole families over. So that means to me that people are here to stay. And if that means the case, then yes, service does need to step up. But there is the other side where, you do pay for what you get. And obviously I do find when you go to the top restaurants, top hotels, and you do obviously kind of pay, you generally do have good service. But I say there is probably just an element of a gap, but I think it was more historically, it was so transitional. Whereas I think now people might switch. And like I say, hospitality would be probably one of the first roles I'd tell anybody to get into because it's the best time to obviously learn people. You see people at their best, their worst, and you have to adapt. And like I say, that's why I always call it the best university I ever went to, was because when you're up there, 40,000 feet and someone's having a heart attack, but you still need to get all the food out and people are asking for water and you're like, can we see what's going on? And that would happen. But you still have to have that smile on your face. If you have a bad day, smile on your face.
Not look panicked. Be calm.
Exactly. Even though sometimes when there was turbulence, they would always look at you and you'd be like, I'm fine. You have to smile.
Everything's fine. We're going down, but it's fine. So you really have had extensive training now. You spoke about something about the mind shift. You've changed from what you were doing. And we spoke about that in our previous podcast with one of our other guests who Dr. Sheen, and she said the same thing. She just felt there needed to be a shift and a change. When did that happen for you? And what was the spark?
I would say towards the end of my flying career, I realised that I had so much more to offer. I was doing a lot of kind of growth mindset at that point, training myself to kind of evolve. I'd started my own social media management company on the side. So I was running a little small business on the side of obviously flying. And I just had this urge where there was something more for me. So I'd say that was a point in the shift. But I'd say the biggest shift was probably when I started training people, to stand up in front of, groups of 20 to 40 people on some occasions. I was quite nervous sometimes by the numbers when I first started, but I feel the thing for me was I'm standing here, they're not. Even though there can be people in the audience which have the knowledge, and that can be really daunting when you're standing and you're training people. But the reality is they're not standing up there. I am.
You are, yeah.
And again, setting certain standards and having standards within my own role and obviously what I do, that's again what's important. So I think the shift probably was when I started giving back to the industry rather than, just being in the industry. I'd say that would be the shift for me.
Isn't it funny how everyone has the same?
Yeah.
Really?
Let's do it. Yeah.
So normally when they're giving back to, that's interesting.
Because when you give back, right? It's all about the energy and what you're putting out. And if I can bring up the other day when I saw you, all those women in the front, the pilot, the captain of the boat, they all said the same thing about being crushed. And even though they're a different country, they're Emirati women, all in high, amazing positions, they all said the same thing. There was a shift, there was that crush, the resistance, and then they grew.
Yeah.
So
you almost now, if you're really kind of intuitive, when something's like a little bit resistance and you can feel the resistance, that's when the biggest pivot happens.
Yes.
And there was some really tough times through this industry because it's not an easy industry to enter. And I would say that to anyone thinking of entering it, be really methodical and strategic about going into obviously this industry. Sales is not for everybody. And, again, I will hands up and I'll say sales for me, the actual full process isn't for me. I prefer kind of, again, like I say, the people aspect, the interacting, the training. And now, I absolutely love the networking side and allowing people to see what our industry offers and bring them in. So now I train people on a different level. I'm not training our industry. I'm training people that don't know anything about Dubai real estate. So I allow them to kind of have really a mini training that I used to offer brokers to our partners, so then they can share that knowledge with their potential network, and then they shift that network into us.
So it's almost like giving them a glimpse of what could be and how you could make it in there kind of thing. So
amazing.
The attraction part of it,
Amazing. One thing that we find, or I find, because I'm over the Middle East, Africa, and the Caribbean, but it's the same everywhere. Service is everything.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people, well, Sheikh Mohammed, let's go with that. I'm grateful to him for what he's built. Imagine this is just a city.
Yeah.
And there are other places that are countries. And what he's done with just the city, his mind, what we've come to is just amazing. I call it the bubble because it's like everything is perfect here.
It is a bubble.
I don't know the last day I locked my front door. Honestly, I don't.
I know.
It's just amazing. But I have to remember when I go back to, New York or wherever
you
it is.
start tapping your pockets. And
I have to remember, don't leave your purse on the shopping cart because we're not in Dubai. A girlfriend of mine that has moved here, I know her husband 50 years. And when they first moved here, they were on vacation, but they moved. So they're here 8 months out of the year, and then maybe a month traveling, and then 3 months in the U.S. Guy came up to her. All he was asking here, she had a cup of coffee in her hand. She was walking, and he said, "Excuse me, what?" She said, "What?" And he said, "I just want to know where you got the coffee." But she said, "My back is so up from being in another atmosphere." She said, "Liesa, I felt so embarrassed after because all he wanted to say is, can you tell me where you got the coffee?"
I need a caffeine fix.
But she was like just so tense. And there's one thing I love about Dubai, and I have to say when it comes to the plan or his multi-annual policy plan of having Dubai be the best place to live by 2040.
Yeah.
It's amazing. My dream and his, I would love just everyone that comes in to get, this is like my dream of dreams, I'm manifesting this. I would love that everyone that comes in to get a service visa, that somehow they come through our door to learn the basics of just communication style skills and how to serve, because we do soft skills training. So it's not how to put the plate in the cup it's communication style, it's leadership skills. And this is stuff you can use through your whole life with your family and your friends. It would make the product of what Dubai is
so more elevated.
Oh my God, the experience for everybody would just be over the moon.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so many examples of connection points where people, are supposed to do something and they do it at
Yeah.
times. They don't do it all the time.
Yeah.
So and in Dubai, I've noticed a lot of that. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's just not consistent.
Yeah.
So you kind of sometimes get the wow aspect, and
I think
sometimes it's
the
like,
tough aspect is when it's too scripted.
Yeah.
Because there would be, when I go back to say the fly-in, again, I keep bringing it up, but there was a point where we'd have to mention the 6 or 5 touch points.
Yeah.
I've forgotten it now. And you'd have certain seniors and they would watch you kind of go introduce yourself to every single passenger. And again, it's like having that kind of thinking outside of the box moment. I remember walking through and I thought, well, if I literally go to this guy and then, not even a meter, I'm going, hi, my name's Natalie. It's like, it's so boring because he's already heard me say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I used to then stage it where I'd go to this one and then I'd go to 5 rows back.
That's good.
And then come back.
So
Yeah.
It's so funny.
come across
Yes,
personable.
because you do your platinum, your gold,
Yeah.
and some silver. So I said, oh, they're coming to me now.
Yeah.
Because you're like 2A, and then they're coming to 2B, C, and then they come. I was like, okay, she's
Yeah.
gonna come. I miss you, and then, I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah. And
Yes.
if it's service, no one wants it too stiff. Because again, I'm picking up on another story. Obviously we had an IO on board, so that's invitation only at that point. And there was a guy, and he had the same surname as my granddad. And I remember going up to him and just instantly kind of, introducing to myself, with the name. And there was like straight away that connection. And then about 2 weeks later, I had the same gentleman on the flight again. And I was like, Mr. Mullen, nice to obviously meet you again. And he's, again, recognised me from the previous flight. But then that senior on that second flight was so stiff and flapping and worried. And, because there was, they're important people, they're VIPs basically.
Yeah.
And I remember he went, is he okay? And I went, yeah, he just wants eye shades, to be left alone, and a drink when he wakes up. Like,
Yes.
that's all the man wants.
Yes.
Leave him be. And, and he'll have a really good flight. And don't worry, our eyes are open to obviously what he needs. But I think that sometimes service can come across too scripted.
Too rigid, yeah.
And that then comes down to the leadership. Because if
Yes.
the leadership is, too tight, it doesn't work. You need to allow people to get, you hire people for, their uniquequeness, their warmth, their personality, basically.
Totally
you
agree.
have to let that shine through. And, we're talking about service, but like I say, sales is that. Sales is
it's
all
exactly
about
that, yeah.
connecting, interacting, and just not being stiff. And being aware and being able to read the room. Emotional intelligence is so
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Like, when you walk in a room and you can feel that the energy's off.
True. Yeah.
Or, I always say when I was training sales, I was like, know the decision maker. The decision maker might be sitting in the corner of the room, silent, but because his family and his children, which were his main priority, are in the room, it's better, if anything, to then show interaction with the kids.
Yes.
Because he'll love that, because again, you're looking after his main
babies.
focus.
Yeah.
But whereas sometimes, let's say it's the decision makers, obviously the husband, and the wife, she's visioning obviously the bedroom, but the guy is obviously there who's going to pay for it. Again, you have to obviously be able to go, he is the final decision maker.
Yeah.
So
Read the
that's
room.
all about energy and reading
They
the
have
room.
to learn to
Read the
read.
room.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Actually, based on those two, service example and sales example, a lot of times what happens is what I've seen over the 30 odd years that I've been involved in training. In the service aspect, we've heard this word so much that I've really got tired of hearing it. It's almost every hospitality industry leader we talk to says, no, our people are empowered. And I'm going like, yeah, I wish.
Really
Because you
not.
ask for a little more than your normal cup of coffee and they say, I need to check with... And I'm going
Yeah.
like, how do you call that empowered? So,
Yeah.
It's not.
If
So,
they're too scared to step out the box.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's what you said. If it's too rigid, so
Yes.
you can do this, but not this.
Yes.
Like,
Again, it comes from the top down.
Yeah.
It does.
I can give you an example. This is a crazy example, but years ago I went to the Camel Festival in
Okay.
Liwa, which is the border between Saudi and Dubai. And I asked for a chicken salad. I remember this. And the table next to me had a salad. The table over there had a chicken sandwich. She said, we don't do that. And I said, yeah, but just put the chicken and
Mix the two.
together. We can't do that. I said, is that chicken? Yeah. Is that salad? Just mix it. No, we can't. So it comes
Yeah.
from the top down. You
It
need
does,
to, and I always said this when I had the restaurant, so I was running the hotel, and he's in the hotel business. You need to be able with the client to think out of the box, and because we're here to serve no
Yeah.
matter what. And sometimes people feel serving is being subservient, but it's really not.
No.
You know, we just came from 10 days of training, a big company, and how funny at the end of the day, we're doing transformational leadership the past 2 days with the heads of corporate, and how one of them, we just asked for we like to get the feedback, whether it be good or bad. Of course, it's mostly 99% good, but that's not the point, because we have a lot of role play. We make
Yeah.
it fun.
Yeah.
And one of the guys stood up and said, when we were doing an exercise about me, is there anything about me? And he said, no, but I like the way she kept her eye, because I'm from that industry. I'm training, but she kept her eye, and when it was our lunch break and our breaks, and she realized that we ran out of water, and she called the guy, even though we had 2 hours left,
Yeah.
they might need water. So I
Yeah.
called and said, it's just the caring. He's up there talking. So we're a tag team. We do our
Yeah.
thing together. One has to notice what the other one needs, but I also need to recognize what the other people need. Not because
Situational
I'm
awareness.
training.
Exactly.
I'm still
Yeah.
serving. I want the
Yeah.
people to be happy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us forget that sometimes. So
Yeah.
even something simple as, we all get this, and he always speaks about this in training. I went into a grocery store the other day, and I was teaching someone to cook.
Okay.
And a fintech guy, said a young fella, and he was spending a lot of money on. He was eating healthy. I said, I'm coming to your place.
Yeah.
I redecorated for him, fixed everything, because he had like 2 plates, 2 forks. I said, hey, you can have people over. Took him to the IKEA. We got everything. He said, you're so fast. I said, that's what, part of what I do. So I taught him some meals, but I went to the store. We needed the containers.
Right.
So I went to the store nearby, because we forgot them in IKEA. And I said to the girl, excuse me, where do you have some containers? Over there.
Oh, no.
And this is so typical. And I said, so I kind of get annoyed because I'm in training,
Yeah.
but not in a bad way. And I said, excuse me, can you show me?
Yeah.
So the security guard heard it. How kind was he? Madam, let me take you. Wow, security guard. He's not even being paid
Yeah.
to do this stuff. But he took note and showed me the way. You know, in India, as we know, a Ramba hotel, and I stayed in Rajasthan, if I asked them, excuse me, I'm looking for the polo bar, they drop everything, ma'am, let me show you. And they take
They'll
you
walk
there.
you there.
Yeah.
They walk you there.
Was part of it the experience then?
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
everything in life is an experience,
Yes.
isn't it? So,
Yes.
even walking into a grocery store can be a bad
Yeah,
experience or
yeah,
a good
exactly.
experience.
Yeah.
Now, in India, a lot of the hotels are, former palaces and stuff like that. So some of them have actually continued the tradition of treating you like royalty. This
Yeah.
is
I
what
love it.
she mentioned.
Yeah.
Let me drop everything. That's not it. This is important.
Yeah.
Let me show you, ma'am.